You walk into Walmart on a Tuesday afternoon and you see him, a man in a black hat, suspenders, a beard with no mustache, pushing a cart loaded with the cheapest, most boring items in the entire store. Salt, vinegar, candles, string. You glance at his cart and you think nothing of it. That is the mistake. Because every single item in that cart costs less than $7, and every single one of them could keep your family alive when the power grid fails, when the shelves go empty, or when the dollar in your pocket finally buys nothing at all. I was paying $412 a month for heat last winter. The Amish family I visited paid nothing. Same temperature outside, same square footage, different knowledge, and that knowledge is sitting on the shelves of the Walmart you drive past 3 times a week. The Amish have been buying these same 9 items every Tuesday for 300 years, not because they are preparing for the end of the world, because they already know what happens when you depend on a power company, a grocery chain, or a dollar that loses value every year. They watched the banks close in 1933. They watched the flu kill 50 million people in 1918. They watched Texas freeze in 2021. Every single time, they were fine. Because of these 9 items, your grandmother knew all 9 of these. Your great-grandfather knew all 9. Somewhere between 1,950 and today, somebody decided you did not need to know anymore. That somebody made a lot of money on the decision. Before this video is over, you will know every one of those 9 items by name. You will know where to find them at your Walmart, and you will know what your grandfather knew that you were never taught. And the 9th item, the one Sarah Miller in Holmes County showed me by candlelight one November evening, was documented in 1887, used by Pennsylvania settlers in 1719, and then erased from every survival book printed in the last 50 years. You will not believe what it is, and you already have it in your pantry. This applies to you whether you live in a brand new subdivision or a farmhouse built in 1948. You do not need land. You do not need permits. Everything you need is already at the Walmart 5 minutes from your house. The only thing missing is the knowledge of what to grab and why, and by the time this video ends, you will have it. The first time I walked into an Amish kitchen near Millersburg, Ohio, I spent 20 minutes looking for the thermostat. There wasn't one. There was no furnace humming in the basement, no central air vent in the ceiling, no glowing digital screen on the wall telling anyone what temperature the house should be. And yet the kitchen was warmer than my own house had been that morning back in Pennsylvania, where I was paying $412 a month to keep a thermostat set at 68 degrees. That was the moment I understood I had been sold a story my entire adult life. A story about comfort, about progress, about the necessity of paying somebody else for the most basic functions of staying alive. And the people who refused to buy that story, the people who said no thank you 3 centuries ago and never looked back, were walking into the same Walmart I walked into every week, buying the same items I walked past every week, and going home to a life where the electric bill does not decide whether you eat that month. So let me start with the first item, because it is the one that nobody guesses. The first item the Amish buy in bulk at Walmart is plain table salt. Not the fancy pink Himalayan stuff in the glass grinder. Not the sea salt in the little wooden box with the cork lid, just plain iodized table salt in the blue cardboard cylinder, the kind that costs about $1.12 for a 26-ounce container. Less than a cup of coffee. A family I knew outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the Stoltzfus family, kept 40 pounds of it in their pantry at all times. 40 pounds. For a family of 6, I asked Eli, the father, why so much, and he looked at me like I had asked him why he kept oxygen in the house. Salt, he said, is how you stop time. Salt is how you tell the bacteria in a piece of pork that today is not their day. Salt is how you turn a cucumber into something you can eat in February. Salt is how you cure a ham that will hang in your smokehouse for 9 months and still feed your children at Christmas. Without salt, he said, every farm in this valley would have starved out by 1750. The Old Farmer's Almanac documented the exact ratio in their salt curing tables. 1 pound of salt per 10 pounds of meat for a dry cure that will last through any winter, no refrigeration required. The Amish have been using that ratio for over 200 years, passed down from the Pennsylvania Dutch settlers who arrived in the 1730s with nothing but a wagon, a Bible, and the knowledge of how to preserve a hog without electricity. And here is what nobody tells you. The average American household throws away more than $1,000 worth of refrigerated food every single year because the power goes out, because the freezer breaks down, because the meat sat too long. The Amish do not have that problem. Their meat is in a crock in the cellar, packed in salt, and it has been there for 6 months, and it will be there for 6 more, and they paid $1.12 for the salt that made it possible. Now think about how much you spent on your electric bill last month just to keep your freezer running. Then think about who profits from the fact that you were never taught the salt trick that every American knew before 1920. The second item the Amish buy in bulk is white vinegar. The gallon jug of distilled white vinegar that Walmart sells for around $3.20, the price of a single roll of paper towels. The Stoltzfus family kept 12 gallons at a time, stacked in the cellar like ammunition, and they used it for everything: cleaning windows, killing weeds in the garden walkway, pickling green beans, cucumbers, beets, cabbage, and onions, disinfecting cuts and scrapes on the children, removing rust from old hinges and tools, softening laundry, killing fleas on the dogs, stripping mineral buildup off the kettle, and when somebody came down with a sore throat, mixing a tablespoon of it with honey and warm water and drinking it 3 times a day until the throat was better. There is a 1,918 record from a Mennonite community in Iowa that documents the use of vinegar gargle during the influenza pandemic when modern medicine had nothing to offer. The mortality rate in that community was a fraction of the surrounding towns. Nobody studied why, nobody funded the research, because vinegar cannot be patented and a gallon of it costs $3.20. I want you to think about every single bottle under your kitchen sink right now. The window cleaner at $4 a bottle, the weed killer at $9 a bottle, the disinfectant spray at $6 a bottle, the fabric softener at $7, the toilet bowl cleaner at $5, the mineral remover at $12. Added up, most American households spend between $200 and $400 a year on chemical cleaning products, every single one of which can be replaced by a $3.20 jug of white vinegar that you can buy at the same Walmart where you bought the chemicals. Somebody designed a marketing system that convinced you that you needed 16 different bottles to do what one bottle has done for 400 years. That somebody made a lot of money. The Amish never watched those commercials. They never got the memo. They walk into Walmart, they grab the vinegar, they grab the salt, and they go home and their kitchens stay full and their bills stay small and they sleep just fine at night. The third item is baking soda. The plain yellow box of Arm & Hammer baking soda that costs 98 cents at Walmart for a 1-pound box. Less than the change in your cup holder. The Amish buy it 10 and 20 boxes at a time. Why? Because baking soda does the work of about 30 separate products that the rest of us pay full price for. It cleans teeth, it deodorizes the refrigerator, it scrubs the stove, it treats bee stings, it settles upset stomachs, it softens bath water, it puts out grease fires when water would make them explode. It leavens biscuits when you are out of baking powder. It absorbs odor from work boots and outhouses. It cleans corroded battery terminals on the buggy lamps. A study published by the University of Kentucky Agricultural Extension in 1962 found that a single-pound box of baking soda used across an Amish household replaced an average of $47 worth of commercial products in $1962. Adjusted for inflation, that is over $470 in today's money. For 98 cents. The Amish know this. The companies that sell you 47 different specialized products know this too. Guess which one of those parties has been telling you the truth? The fourth item the Amish buy in bulk is paraffin emergency candles. Walmart sells a box of 120 of them for around $4.90, the price of a single greeting card. Eli Stoltzfus had 300 of them stored in a wooden crate in the back pantry. The Old Farmer's Almanac documented in their 1887 edition that a single paraffin candle burning in a small, enclosed room raises the ambient temperature by approximately 3 degrees Fahrenheit. 3 candles in a closed bedroom can keep an adult from freezing on a power outage night, even when outdoor temperatures drop into the teens. The Department of Energy has separately confirmed that closing off unused rooms and concentrating heat in a single occupied space dramatically reduces the energy required to maintain a livable temperature. The Amish have been doing this for 300 years. They concentrate the family in one warm room. They burn 3 candles. They survive any winter the weather throws at them without spending a single dollar on natural gas, propane, or electricity for heat. Now, think about what happened in Texas in February of 2021. 246 people died in their homes because the power grid failed and they did not know how to stay warm without it. 246. The Amish families in northern Ohio that same week, in much colder weather, were perfectly fine. Their grandparents had taught them. Their grandparents' grandparents had taught their grandparents. Nobody had ever interrupted the chain of knowledge by telling them that staying warm required a multi-$1,000 furnace and a monthly bill that never ended. If you are still paying full price for heating while the Amish stay warm for pennies, ask yourself who taught you to heat your house that way. Then ask yourself who profits from the answer. Now here is where it stops being about saving money and starts being about staying alive. Kerosene. The plain 1-gallon jug of K1 kerosene that Walmart sells for around $6.90. Now, before you tell me you do not own a kerosene lamp, hear me out, because this is where the suppressed knowledge gets serious. The Amish use kerosene not just for lighting, but for cleaning paintbrushes, lubricating squeaky hinges that water would rust, starting stubborn fires in damp wood stoves, treating wooden tool handles to prevent rot, and as a base for traditional cattle salves. But more importantly, a single gallon of kerosene burned in a properly trimmed Aladdin lamp produces approximately 1,500 BTUs of heat per hour, while also providing the light equivalent of a 60-watt incandescent bulb, and it does this for approximately 45 hours of continuous operation for $6.90. 45 hours of light and heat for under $7. I sat in Sarah Miller's kitchen in Holmes County one November evening as the sun went down. She lit 2 kerosene lamps on the table. The whole kitchen turned golden. The room was warm. We could see every face clearly. We could read, we could sew, we could play checkers. And the meter on the side of the house was not spinning. Because there was no meter, because there was no wire, because Sarah and her husband had never connected to the grid, and never would. The lamps had cost them $40 each 20 years ago. The kerosene cost them about $3 a week. And in 20 years of marriage, they had spent less on lighting than the average American family spends in a single year. Now you tell me which one of those systems is sustainable. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. The 6th item the Amish buy in bulk is canning lids. The standard wide-mouth ball brand canning lids that Walmart sells in a box of 12 for around $2.40, the price of a single candy bar. The Amish buy them by the case, 200 at a time, because canning lids are the one part of home preservation that absolutely cannot be reused. The jars last forever, the metal rings last for decades, but the rubber sealing compound on the flat lid is good for one use and one use only. And here is what nobody told you. During the canning lid shortage of 2020, when grocery stores were empty and people were paying $10 a dozen for lids on the internet, the Amish families I knew were canning 400 jars of tomatoes without missing a single beat. Why? Because they had bought their lids in 2018, 2 full years before anyone else realized those lids were going to matter. They saw the pattern, they saw the dependency, they saw that the entire American food preservation infrastructure rested on a thin disc of metal with a rubber gasket that was manufactured by exactly 3 companies. So they bought 10 years of supply at $2.40 a box and put them on a shelf in the cellar. Now here is how this applies to your existing house, the one you already own, the one with the kitchen you already have. You do not need a farmhouse. You do not need a root cellar. You do not need an acre of garden. You need a Miro pressure canner, which Walmart sells for around $80, a case of jars, a case of lids, and any source of fresh produce, including the bargain bin produce that your grocery store marks down at the end of the day. A widow named Mary Byler in Lancaster County taught me that you can drive to the local farmer's market 30 minutes before closing on a Saturday, buy 2 bushels of tomatoes that the farmer is about to throw away for $10, drive home, and have 40-quart jars of crushed tomatoes on your basement shelf by Sunday night. 40 quarts. For $10 in tomatoes and about $5 in lids, that same 40 quarts would cost you about $160 at the grocery store. You just made $145 in one weekend in a kitchen that already exists in a house you already own. And those tomatoes will be there in February and in April and in July when grocery prices have climbed another 10% and you are wondering how everyone else in the country is going broke. This works in an apartment, this works in a condo, this works in a house built in 1962 with linoleum on the floor and shag carpet in the living room. You do not need permission. You do not need a permit. You do not need a contractor. You need a pot, a jar, a lid, and the knowledge that the Amish never forgot. And the moment you put 40 jars on a shelf, you have changed your relationship to the grocery store forever. They no longer have you. They no longer set your price. They no longer determine whether your family eats this week. That is what the Amish know. That is what your grandmother knew. That is what somebody somewhere made a great deal of money convincing you to forget. So before I give you the last and oldest piece of this, the one Sarah Miller showed me by candlelight one November evening in Holmes County, the one documented in 1887 and used by Pennsylvania settlers in 1719, here is where everything lives. Every item, every method, every technique I have pulled out of these communities is gathered in one place in the description below. It is called the Amish Home System. Now, stay right here, because what comes next is the reason I built this entire video around. I want to tell you about Mary Stoltzfus, who is 73 years old and lives on a farm just outside of Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania. Mary has been keeping the same root cellar her grandmother kept, and her grandmother kept the one her great-grandmother kept, going all the way back to 1847 when the family first crossed the ocean from Switzerland. Mary showed me her shelves one afternoon in November, and on those shelves were 240-quart jars of canned tomatoes, 96 jars of green beans, 60 jars of peaches, 48 jars of pickled beets, 30 jars of chow chow, 20 jars of apple butter, and 120 pounds of potatoes in burlap sacks layered with straw. Mary told me that she had not bought a vegetable from a store in 41 years. 41 years! Think about that. Think about what that means for a family budget. Think about what that means for nutrition. Think about what that means for resilience. And then think about the fact that every single thing Mary uses to preserve that food, every lid, every band, every packet of pectin, every bag of canning salt, every bottle of white vinegar, costs less than $7 at the Walmart in Ephrata, where she sends her grandson once a month with a list written in pencil on the back of an envelope. The list, by the way, almost never changes. I saw the list. Her grandson Jacob showed it to me. It said, in this order, salt, vinegar, baking soda, matches, lids, candles, lamp oil, sugar, and flour. 9 items. The same 9 items, more or less, that I have been describing to you for this entire video. The list has been the same since 1962, when Mary first started writing it, and the only thing that has changed is the price, which has gone up, but not nearly as much as you would think. Because these are the items that inflation forgets to ravage, because nobody on Wall Street is speculating on canning salt futures, and nobody is cornering the market on candle wicks. Eli told me something one evening in late January of 2019, while we were sitting on the porch and the temperature was 12 degrees and the wind was coming down off the ridge like it had a grudge. He said, my grandfather lived through 1933. He said, my grandfather watched the banks close on March 6th, and he watched the neighbors who had everything in the bank become the neighbors who had nothing by March 10th. And my grandfather told me, when I was 9 years old, never keep your wealth in something a man in a suit can close on a Monday morning. Keep your wealth in salt, in flour, in matches, in seeds, in jars, in lard, in vinegar, in things that do not care what the Federal Reserve does on a Tuesday. That was 1933, and the lesson has been passed down for 92 years now, from father to son, from mother to daughter, in a community that does not forget the way the rest of us forget. The Amish do not forget 1933. They do not forget 1918. When the influenza killed 50 million people worldwide, and the families with stocked pantries and honey and vinegar and elderberry survived at rates that statisticians still cannot fully explain. They do not forget 1973, when the gas lines stretched for blocks and the supermarkets ran out of toilet paper for the first time in American history. They do not forget 1977, when the New York City blackout led to looting that destroyed 1,600 businesses in 25 hours. They remember all of it, and they prepare for all of it, and they do it for under $7 an item, on a random Tuesday, at the same Walmart you drive past 3 times a week without thinking. I want to tell you about Mary Stoltzfus, who is 73 years old. Plain, hard, unscented bar soap. Walmart sells a 10-pack of Ivory soap for around $4.80. The Amish buy it in case lots, 24 bars at a time, because a single hard bar of soap lasts an Amish adult between 2 and 3 months of daily use, where a bottle of liquid soap, with its hidden water content and squeeze pump waste, lasts about 3 weeks. The math is brutal. A liquid soap user spends approximately $96 a year on hand soap. A bar soap user spends about $19 a year. The difference, $77 a year, is what the soap companies hoped you would never calculate. But the deeper reason the Amish buy bar soap in bulk is that hard bar soap, properly stored, has a shelf life of decades. I have personally held a bar of homemade lye soap made by a great-grandmother in 1957 that still produced a perfect lather in 2019. 62 years. Liquid soap separates, grows bacteria, and goes bad within a year. Hard soap, made the old way, with tallow and lye, is essentially immortal. The Amish keep crates of it in their pantries because they know that during any disruption, any shortage, any season when the trucks stop running, the family that has soap can stay clean, and the family that can stay clean does not get sick, and the family that does not get sick does not need a doctor, and the family that does not need a doctor does not go bankrupt. And when the trucks stop running for 3 days, the family with liquid soap pumps is out of soap by day 2. The family with a crate of hard bar soap does not notice anything happened. It is a chain of consequences that begins with a $4.80 10-pack at Walmart. The 8th item is plain, unbleached cotton flower sack towels. Walmart sells a 5-pack of them for about $5.97. The Amish buy them 10 packs at a time and rotate them through every job that paper towels do in a modern American kitchen. Drying dishes, wiping spills, straining cheese, covering rising bread dough, wrapping warm biscuits, polishing glass, cleaning windows, bandaging cuts in an emergency, carrying eggs in from the hen house, filtering homemade apple cider. The average American family spends approximately $180 a year on paper towels. A single 10-pack of flour sack towels at $12 total will last a family of 4 for over a decade with proper washing and rotation. That is $15 a year against $180. That is $165 a year that stays in your pocket instead of going into a landfill 12 hours after you bought it. And when the supply chain breaks and the paper towel aisle is empty, the family with flour sack towels does not notice anything happened. They wash the towels, they hang them on the line, they use them again. The family with paper towels is using newspaper and old t-shirts and wondering why nobody told them there was a better way. And finally, the 9th item. This is the one I want you to remember. The one I learned about from Sarah Miller in Holmes County. The one that nobody on the internet is talking about. The one that was documented in the 1887 edition of the Old Farmer's Almanac and then disappeared from the modern record. The 9th item the Amish buy at Walmart, in bulk, every single week, is plain cotton string, cotton twine. A ball of it costs about $2.70 in the hardware section. And what the Amish do with cotton string is the single most underestimated survival skill in North America. They use it for tying tomato plants to stakes, yes. For hanging herbs to dry in the rafters, yes. For trussing a chicken before roasting, yes. But what Sarah Miller taught me on a cold November afternoon in her kitchen in Holmes County was this. A length of pure cotton string, soaked in melted beeswax or paraffin and allowed to harden, becomes a homemade emergency candle wick that will burn for hours on any small dish of fat, oil, or rendered lard. A 3-foot length of plain cotton string, prepared this way at a total cost of about 6 cents, can be dropped into a tuna can full of vegetable oil and will provide a steady flame for over 6 hours. 6 hours! From a tuna can and a piece of string and whatever cooking oil is already in your pantry. This was documented by a Pennsylvania Dutch settler named Hans Herr in a household journal preserved in the archives of the Lancaster Historical Society, dated 1719. Hans Herr's family used this exact technique to light their stone house through the entire winter of 1719 to 1720, when the kerosene of their time, whale oil, was unavailable and they were 3 days from the nearest trading post. The journal entry specifically mentions the length of the wick, the type of oil, and the duration of the burn. The technique was used continuously by Amish and Mennonite households throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. It appeared in the Old Farmer's Almanac in 1887 with detailed instructions. And then, somewhere between the invention of the electric light bulb and the rise of mass-produced emergency candles, the technique vanished from the public record. Not because it stopped working. It still works perfectly. It vanished because there was no profit in teaching people that they could light their entire home for 6 cents using string and cooking oil they already owned. The reason you have never heard of this is because cotton string cannot be patented. Cooking oil cannot be patented. The combination cannot be sold as a survival kit for $99 on late-night television. There is no pharmaceutical company, no utility company, no home security company that benefits from you knowing this. So nobody told you. For 138 years, since that 1887 Almanac entry, this knowledge has been preserved by exactly one population of people in America: the Amish, the Mennonites, the Pennsylvania Dutch farmers in the valleys of Lancaster and Holmes counties. They preserved it because they never depended on the system that was busy forgetting it. And now, because you watched this video, you have it too. You can walk into Walmart this weekend. You can buy a $2.70 ball of cotton string. You can buy a 1-pound block of paraffin wax for about $4. You can come home, melt the wax in a double boiler on your existing stove, dip 3-foot lengths of cotton string into it, hang them on a clothesline to harden, and within an hour you will have approximately 15 emergency wicks that will each burn for 6 hours over any dish of cooking oil. Total cost under $7. Total light produced 90 hours. The next time the power goes out in your neighborhood and the rest of the street is sitting in the dark calling the utility company, you will be sitting in your kitchen with a flame on your table, reading a book, the way Hans Herr did in 1719, the way Sarah Miller still does today in Holmes County, the way every generation of Amish family has done since they first set foot on American soil 3 centuries ago. What you just learned is not a list of survival items. It is a way of seeing, a way of walking into a Walmart and seeing not products but possibilities, not prices but freedom. Not aisles, but the quiet wisdom of 300 years of people who refused to forget what every American once knew. You did not lose this knowledge by accident. It was taken from you, slowly, methodically, one product at a time, one commercial at a time, one specialized cleaner and one disposable paper towel and one monthly utility bill at a time, by an entire economy that needed you dependent in order to stay profitable. And the people who walked away from that economy 3 centuries ago, who put on the black hats and kept the beards and kept the buggies, they kept the knowledge too. They kept it in their pantries, in their cellars, in their kitchens, in their daily walks into Walmart on a Tuesday afternoon. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect somebody else's balance sheet, you already know what to do next. You are going to walk into your kitchen tonight. You are going to look at what is under your sink. You are going to count the bottles, count the boxes, count the dollars, and then you are going to make a list. 9 items, under $7 each. Total cost, under $60. And you are going to put them on a shelf the way Eli Stoltzfus did and the way Sarah Miller still does. And you are going to know, for the first time in a long time, that your family does not depend on a system that can fail. I want you to understand something about the math here, because the math is staggering once you actually do it. The average American household spends roughly $475 a month on groceries for a family of 4, according to USDA data from 2023. The Amish family I lived with that winter, the Hostetler family, spent approximately $92 a month on what they could not produce themselves, and that $92 went almost entirely to the items on this list. $92, less than a quarter of what the average American spends, and they ate better. They ate 3 hot meals a day, they ate meat at every dinner, they ate fresh bread every morning, they ate preserved fruit at every breakfast. They ate butter that was churned that week and cheese that was aged in their own cellar and eggs that were laid that morning by chickens whose names the children knew. The difference is not magic. The difference is the list. The difference is buying these 9 items in bulk at Walmart for under $7 a piece, and then using them with the skill that has been passed down for 200 years. Now, I want to hear from you, and I mean it. Of those 9 items, which one shocked you the most? Was it the kerosene lamp that runs for 45 hours on $6.90 of fuel? Was it the cotton string wick from Hans Herr's 1719 journal? Was it the canning lids that the Amish bought in 2018, 2 years before the rest of the country panicked? Tell me in the comments below. Type the number and tell me why. I read every single one, and I share the best ones in the next video. Do not just nod and click away. Leave a comment. This audience does not interact by accident. We interact on purpose, because we are building something here together. And if any of this resonated with you, if you felt that quiet click in your chest when I described Eli's pantry, or Sarah's kitchen, or the warmth of a candle that costs 4 cents, then subscribe right now. Not because it helps me, because it puts you inside a community of people who are systematically recovering the knowledge that was systematically taken from us. We are not preppers in the cartoon sense. We are not survivalists in the bunker sense. We are the descendants of people who knew how to live, and we are remembering how, one Tuesday afternoon at Walmart at a time. The next video is already in production, and it covers something even more important. It covers the one item the Amish keep in every single cellar in Lancaster County, an item that costs less than $2 at Walmart, and an item that quietly replaced the entire over-the-counter medicine aisle for the family I lived with that winter of 2019. You will not believe what it is. You will not believe what it does. And you will not believe how long they have been hiding it from you. I will see you there. So, when you go to Walmart this week, and you will, because you go every week, I want you to walk past the things you usually buy and walk toward the things on this list. Start with 1. Start with the salt. Start with the vinegar. Start anywhere. Just start. And remember that the man in the black hat with the 2 carts is not preparing for the end of the world. He is living in a world that never depended on the grid in the first place. And for less than $60, you can start living in that world too. The knowledge existed, it was buried, it was preserved by people who never depended on the systems that buried it, and now it has been handed to you. What you do with it is up to you. But you can never again say, nobody told you.